The nuclear war has ended. The Earth is in ruins and chaos reigns everywhere. Jiang Chen has taken the responsibility of creating a base area for refugees so they can survive. His real motive is to transport the technology that was used on the Judgment Day and go back to reality. But first, he has to create the Great Union of the Earth Federation, change the political system of the world, and expand the area to battle the aerial danger and save the whole of humanity. Before we begin, don't forget to smash that subscribe button and hit that bell icon so you never miss an update from us. The world after the apocalypse is not the same, and Sun Xiao agrees that she has had many unbelievable experiences in this world, starting with the most unfortunate incident. In the flashback, we see Jiang Chen tied to a chair while Xiao tortures him. It looks like she's interrogating him as brutally as she can. Asking him his name, Xiao starts mocking him for a girly name, while Shen can only argue back by saying that his name is perfect for a handsome boy. He's too confident about himself, isn't he? Shen is the only boy in 9 generations of his family, and of course he never expected to be treated like this. But Xiao really doesn't care. He tells her he's from the north, while she takes out a can of Coca-Cola that she was apparently carrying. She's acting like she has seen this can for the first time. Does this mean Coca-Cola is a rarity in the post-apocalyptic world? Moving on, Xiao drinks the whole can, asking him where he got it from, and she even ends up threatening to kill him. It comes as a shock when Shen reveals that he saved her life. Is this how she's thanking him? Shen tells her that he's from somewhere more affluent and is collecting a few useful things for someone. Plus, he also has to get rid of some of the excess things like the soda can she just licked. They are in Wanghai City. From supermarkets to refrigerators, everything is clean. They're going through a dangerous food shortage. Hearing this, Shen asks her to be his partner and guide in return for a carrot, which is so fresh that she has to agree to it. However, she promises to blow his head off if his partnership involves unusual services. Shen promises to be on his best behavior, which makes her ask what exactly he's searching for. It might be the slaves. Apparently, instead of slaves, he wants to find technology, just like the laser gun she's holding and the computer on her arm, as they can't produce it themselves. However, she doesn't believe that he's telling the truth about his motives, since technology is not as hard to produce. He comes up with a better lie to cover it up, saying that they only need general technology, which she thankfully believes. He's great at lying. Her list of rewards includes sea batteries, food, and crystals. She isn't satisfied with him not having some more of the canned chicken curry and starts kicking him again. To stop her from beating him to a pulp, he agrees to pay her 10 cans per month. She's an evil woman, but really smart. She finally unties him, but he still thinks that he'll end up dead by her hands. It's actually a great possibility. The next order of business is to stay at this location, since this was the safest place for them. Wanghai City in 2190 is filled with zombies and foreign creatures, and Shen has come a long way from 2017. He's traveled through time, just like all the TV shows about time travel, but this story comes with a twist. Instead of being transported back to ancient times, he has entered a parallel universe where Earth is completely different. Shen would never have imagined in his wildest dreams that he could have had the ability to travel through time. The reason begins in the year 2017, which according to him is only a few months ago. He'd been out of college for a year and was still asking for pocket money from home. His mom wasn't happy about him still not being financially independent, but he clearly didn't think that it was a problem. His mom advised him to leave the big city and move back to his hometown. The idea didn't sit well with Shen, as he didn't want to breed pigs back home. But he clearly should have been thanking those pigs, as breeding them was the reason his parents could pay for his expenses. He hung up on his mother and opened a can of beer, thinking about his woes of not having a decent job even after graduating. That is when he saw a shooting star and remembered the old legend that said that shooting stars make wishes come true. He wished for a good job and for his career to reach its peak. However, he was baffled to watch the shooting star come right at him, catching him fully off guard. It sounds ridiculous, but he was actually hit by a star, which gave him the ability of metaverse travel. Soon enough, he discovered that after absorbing 100 kilowatts of power, the spaces around his tattoo would fill up, fulfilling the requirements to perform a metaverse travel. The requirement does sound simple enough. Talking about the butterfly effect, Chen thought that the future was extremely uncertain all the time. He landed in an abandoned house on his first metaverse travel, which looked like it hadn't been visited in ages. He found a newspaper which told him he'd landed in the year 2190 in the Wanghai city of China, which is vastly different from the Wanghai city he knew. So much had happened in this time, including a nuclear war and mutated creatures. He wanted to return back as soon as possible, but the tattoo was gone after one round trip. However, he managed to get back after recharging. But he was curious about the world he'd just visited and decided to go back once more, as he could have found something precious there. In order to prepare for the trip, he bought a box of canned food, a box of Spam, and instant noodles. He thought he'd only spend a night there, and this much food was enough for that. Traveling back, he perfected the safe landing and found himself in the abandoned city. Thankfully, the zombies didn't seem to be lurking in the daylight. He found the perfect safe spot for a reference point and entered the house after thinking no one was there. He was proved wrong, as someone grabbed his ankle, but luckily it wasn't a ghost. It was just Xiao, laying down on the floor, threatening to kill him, as always. He made her drink some water and gave her some food since she was starving. Of course, he had to save her life after all. He was a gentleman. Shen obviously did not know that she would turn out to be a thankless girl who would tie him up to a chair. However, he is lucky that she still had a conscience. He would have liked it a lot less if he had run into a cannibal or a slave trader. He's glad to have successfully cracked the deal with Xiao, who asks him how he's going to transport supplies in their new safe house. He chooses not to reveal his abilities and sidesteps her question while looking at all the paintings hanging inside the house. They could be worth millions, but he obviously can't take them back home to sell, as nobody there would even know these artists. They start a conversation about how most of the technological devices had stopped working after the war, but their parts are still traded at the survivor bases. Shen believes that he can probably trade food for the high-tech geniuses of this world to produce these advanced devices for him, as they are probably worthless here. While Xiano tries to lock the door fully, she thinks it's worthless since those mindless zombies are not going to have a hint that they're here. But Shen has already thought ahead and is telling her to secure the building so there's no danger of intruders slipping and slitting their throats while they sleep. She tells him about E-Paid, which is important to keep off the nuclear radiations from entering their bodies. This device might be too expensive here, as she took it from an unlucky corpse. Shen tries on the device, which instantly shows him his body stats, including the radiation levels, which are safe for now. She mocks him for his low figures, which hurts his ego, and he's ready to prove that he's a man. But isn't she too dangerous to have such thoughts about? He should probably think about such activities in his own world. Xiao also decides further against offending her new meal ticket, who is Shen, as now she doesn't have to worry about getting food at all. Lost in his thoughts, Shen is highly curious about the treasures of this world, since most of the simple civilian equipment here can trump the countless prototypes lying in the science labs back home. But he obviously can't just take these devices and sell them there. What he needs is this world's gold. Xiao proves that gold has zero value here, but back in the 21st century, it could be a useful commodity. He gives her bread and a can of food to stop asking questions, which shocks her, as she has seen people killing their own kind for food. Where is he getting all this countless food from? Shen is so annoyed that he even has to explain the concept of breakfast to her, after which she promises to try her best to find the gold in the bank's vault. But transporting that gold will be much tougher than finding it. As all the cars have stopped working after the nuclear war destroyed everything, it'll be a task for her to find a drivable car. However, Shen knows that he has already figured out that aspect and just wants to know the exact location of the gold and the level of danger surrounding it. Zhao states the more obvious fact that zombies are much smarter when the sun goes down, when Shen advises her to be back before dark. She starts to leave after grabbing her supplies, and makes sure to show him his superhuman stats in the EP device before leaving. This has to make him a little insecure, but he obviously doesn't have any time to lose, and he travels back home. He decides to recharge straight from the electrical supply so he can be back before Xiao returns, until there's a blackout. These electrical companies are failing everywhere. He needs to soon figure out a solution for his charging problem and starts thinking about his possible options. The EP soon tells him to fill up his iodine level, and Shen decides to fill up his tummy first. Moving on to the kitchen, he cooks a delicious meal for himself. After all, he didn't pass the new Oriental chef exam for nothing. This makes him start wondering about the tons of gold he can trade this kind of food for in the post-apocalyptic world. He looks extremely grateful for not having to live in that world. But can he be too happy, since he'll be the first one to die in a corner if the Third World War breaks out? Shaking off this thought, he fills up his bag with all the food and supplies and travels back to 2190. He's glad to find out that not even half his power is consumed this time, but soon gets distracted by a high-tech power distribution cabinet. Are his charging problems finally going to end? Now, Shen doesn't think that living in this tech world is so bad when he hears a bang and is delighted to see that Xiao is back. She enters, violent as ever, saying that the bank was full of zombies and it took 2 batteries of ammo to get rid of them. Moreover, she tosses him a bag full of gold bars that she found in the bank's VIP room since the vault is sealed with thick layers of steel. Extremely happy with her, he gives her a can of Coca-Cola, which is still cold, but she doesn't want to ask too many questions, so she just enjoys what she's getting. Moving on, she tells him that they need a professional to blow the bank vault wide open, and some powerful explosives. The explosives might not be too hard to find in this extremely peaceful society. She knows that they can easily find them in the survivor bases like Looting Town, which is an interesting town but slightly more expensive. Apparently, visitors have to pay 1 energy unit's worth of crystals or items of equivalent value to enter that town. Turns out that only those formidable mutants who roam around are capable of crystallizing them on the backs of their heads, but they obviously have no wish to run into those guys ever. Turns out that a lot of food items and batteries can be exchanged for these crystals, which seems to be able to charge Shen's tattoo as well. These crystals might actually be useful here. She gets offended at the way Shen thinks and wants to make deals, and advises him to be careful or people will take advantage of him. The trading of the crystals highly depends on the kind of food, since the canned food in looting is filled with mutant meat. This new world is not as simple as Shen initially thought, and maybe he should stop coming here now after getting all these gold bars. He might end up getting turned into a can of food if he stays. He doesn't show his anxiety to Xiao, who tells him to bring her along whenever he trades with someone in the future. Maybe she's finally warming up to him? Xiao is already going towards the fridge at this point and finds it filled with food and working perfectly. It makes her speechless after hearing him say that they will have fresh food tonight. Working up his charm, he takes out a tomato from the fridge, announcing that they will have tomato fried eggs. It's time for Xiao's backstory, and it looks like she was born into extreme poverty. But she had her parents and an adorable sister by her side. The environment in her shelter was heavenly compared to this nuclear winter that went on for years. However, she found out a few years later that a lot of mercenary groups were targeting poorly defended and newly opened shelters. Those mercenaries robbed those kind people's survival supplies and hurt their population. That incident made her grow up to become a qualified wasteland survivor. Back to the present, Xiao and Shen are chopping up the vegetables, where she's having a hard time since she hasn't cooked in a while. Shen supposedly pours his heart and soul into the cooking process, which obviously turns out to be delicious because she can't stop eating. He knows she obviously has questions about where he gets all this food from, but she only explains that it feels like he's literally come out of a fairy tale for her. She explains to him what fairy tales are, while he brings back all the cans of beer. She chugs one down and finds that this stuff isn't as good as Coca-Cola. They keep drinking until they are too intoxicated, and Shen starts ranting about the monster from his home called graduation. His problem with graduation is never-ending, as it swallows his carefree student lifestyle and monthly expenses given by his parents. Continuing his story, he tells her about jobs, companies, and nagging bosses. But she believes that no boss can ever torture her with her physical stats. While having all these meaningless conversations, Xiao finds herself on the floor, with Shen hovering above her, promising to show her who's boss. Xiao tackles Shen to get on top, and it's proven that she's freakishly strong. The next moment, they find themselves in bed, where Shen promises her that he'll be responsible. However, she's disappointed that he hasn't said all the lovey-dovey things that are written in the old books. She also reveals that she's had a lot of enemies and things that she has to do, but he is insistent that he will help her out with everything. They kiss and have a passionate night until dawn finally arrives. Shen and Xiao are outside in the city. He can't catch up with her due to their workout from last night, which is making him dizzy. However, they have to be quick since danger is lurking everywhere, and they are completely exposed to radiation. The good news is that the radiation level in their body will not exceed the threshold as they have iodine in their EP. But of course, it's advisable to wear protective gear when they're passing through high radiation areas. Shen isn't too pleased to hear this, as he wouldn't even be out here if it wasn't for her rotten idea. A flashback reveals that Xiao talked him into learning how to fire a gun to protect himself, which isn't a bad idea for his own safety. They're about to enter a zombie-infested area as Xiao loads her gun, declaring that the best place to hone one's shooting skills is the battlefield. And it's time for Shen to do just that. He has to hold on to his weapon now. She hands him an assault rifle, explaining all the specifications of the weapon. Does she expect him to remember all these details on his first try? Shen is only concerned about the mutants attacking them, but Xiao isn't that worried as the mutants' innate fear of humans still remains, and not all creatures are aggressive, except for some creatures. The carnivores are the only ones they have to be aware of, but who aren't picky eaters when it comes to humans. They have to avoid turning into their dinner, which makes Shen realize this world is too dangerous. Xiao thinks that it's really unusual that all the mutants have disappeared, believing that something more powerful is likely around. It might be the Death Claw, who are the carnivores of some sort as well. They hear a huge explosion at this moment, and Xiao turns to go to that site, telling him to follow her. Is she sure that's the right direction to go? Soon we find out that a few soldiers are fighting a huge meat mountain, which looks as dreadful as it sounds. All their attacks and explosives seem to have no effect on this creature, and there's a point of huge concern for the soldiers. The soldiers have brought out the big guns, an anti-tank cannon, which has annihilated the enormous creature. Shen is disgusted to find out that the soldiers are collecting crystals from its corpse, and that its fat can be used as fertilizers. He has decided to never touch a nutrient solution, ever. They go on their way to Looting Town, and at their arrival, an officer inspects their gene code, which is the only way to prove one's identity in this world. They're granted permission to enter after the inspection is successful, and Shen actually finds the signs of civilization here. But he figures that this civilization here has developed abnormally, and the level of technology is disproportionate. He can see a soldier firing a rifle, staring into space with a cigarette hanging from his mouth. Moreover, people with missing limbs are also a common sight, with men and women looking like bags of bones who don't even have the energy to cry because of hunger. He comes out of his thoughts when Xiao tells him the laws of this place, which term murder and theft to be punishable by shooting. Tax fraud leads to eviction, and intentional harm lands a person in jail. This is when Shen shouts at someone who was whacking a man on the street. Xiao tells him to mind his own business and shut his mouth, as the inspector responsible for cleaning up the corpses in the slums was the one whacking him. But that person clearly looks alive to him. Xiao ignores his complaints, saying that the inner circle of the 6th Street is cleaner, but it will cost them 1 unit of crystals to get in there. They might not have to go there, as they only have to exchange some useful stuff in the external market only, even though it's too filthy. The street gets even weirder when Xiao tells him that the thieves that are shot dead will soon be turned into fertilizer as well. This truly is a twisted civilization. Moving further ahead, they find a merchant selling off slave girls like merchandise, who are bought by the New Ray Hotel, where girls are used to satisfy all kinds of sick demands. Coming to the merchant, she believes that he's probably from the force that's seizing Shelter 101. But it looks like Shen has a lot to learn about the concept of these shelters. So Xiao starts explaining that each shelter has its own unique design philosophy, with the same goal of achieving maximum survival rate. But what good is survival when the people are living miserable lives? Xiao was clearly lucky to have been born in Shelter 071, where her life was much easier than the rest of the shelters. Telling about the Shelter 070, Zhao reveals that their philosophy was to govern men, with a spiritual leader as the head, but the shelter turned into hell within 10 years. The spiritual leader had abandoned his modesty and became a tribe leader, getting rid of all the males and using all the females as his personal sex slaves. However, Shelter 101 does not have any humans, but rather stores the DNA of elites from all over the world, where humans are supposedly bred. This could probably be the end of humanity as we know it. Shen has brought his canned food to the trading robot so he can get crystals in return. This robot seems to be done with dealing with useless scraps that humans bring in front of him every day. But Shen's radiation-free beef comes as a pleasant surprise to him. The robot tells him to proceed to the VIP room until a trader arrives to serve him, as they clearly want him to sell more of his canned beef to them. Shen and Xiao leave the VIP room with 50 crystals for each can of food, and she believes that he got ripped off as those are luxury goods. If they sell them to the rich people, they'll get paid double. Shen doesn't care about being underpaid, as it only takes 1 unit of crystal to charge his tattoo up to 30%. Walking out, she even tells him that the VIP room was for special services, and the women there would have probably looked after him if she hadn't followed him inside. This makes Shen draw her closer, saying he would prefer her for all those services. This probably makes her toes curl up, and they kiss just when she believes someone's following them. It's obvious that she thinks that no one will notice them if they pretend to be lovers, as they continue on their way to the clinic where Shen gets the vaccine to prevent zombie infections. At least he's vigilant enough to strengthen his immunity. Zhao tells him that their next stop is the firearms store, where they can replenish their ammo, further suggesting that they spend the night here in town, where the night is full of terrors and opportunities. There's a man lying with his hands tied in front of Shen and Xiao, and it turns out that he's the person who's following them. Zhao wants him to spill the name of the person who sent him, using her old tactic of using physical violence. Who knew a serious Zhao could be this frightening? To know how they got into the situation, we have to go back an hour, when Shen was sitting alone in his room, still shocked after spotting the anti-aircraft cannons installed on the hotel's rooftop. Zhao had gone off somewhere without telling him as well, and he was bored. The next instant, a man fell in front of him, while Zhao makes a reappearance, accusing him of sneaking around to keep a watch on them and threatening all kinds of torture that she can invoke. She is clearly not believing his lies, and starts counting to make him talk until Shen interrupts, giving her more ideas to torture him. Shen offers him a deal to start talking, and takes out a crystal in front of him. He's a businessman after all, and knows how to make people cooperate. The man reveals that his bosses are the Ashes Mercenary Corps, which confuses Shen. Zhao knows a lot about them, as their main gigs are trafficking humans and ravaging survivors who are quartered at an experimental school in Songjiang. The man continues his tale, as it began from when Shen was at the pawn shop, where the mercenary boss spotted them as a bunch of walking crystals. The mercenaries followed them around to make sure they were in fact loaded with crystals, as they didn't want to mess with the wrong people. Their suspicions are confirmed, so they decide to send their informant to keep an eye on him. The mercenary had followed them around the whole town, and even watched them getting ammo. The man, Hu Lei, arrived, and the mercenary boss man told him to keep a close eye on them both. His main task was to let them know when they left the city in exchange for 5 units of crystals. Hu Lei went on his way to follow Shen and Xiao, while the boss man started getting ready to pounce on them before any other thief got there first. Back to the present, it is Hu Lei in front of Shen who has revealed the whole story and is dreaming about 100 energy units of crystals, already making plans of splurging them for a month. There is a loud bang, and Hu Lei is dead after getting shot by Shen. Sitting down next to him, Xiao advises him to leave this kind of thing to her. Shen thinks that he needs to get used to all the bloodshed, which makes Xiao sit on his lap, asking him if he's going to stay. Apparently, she knows that he doesn't belong here. She doesn't want him to leave her ever, and he promises that he won't. Even though his initial plan was to only get a bunch of gold from this place, it isn't possible for him to leave everything and go back now. He has to figure out a way to bring her back to the modern world, as this place is not fit for humans to live at all. They are too happy while enjoying their shower together, and it looks like that jean shot wasn't a sham. Shen even has magnificent abs now. They decide to clean up the dead body lying in the room before thinking about dinner. They need to refrain from getting too cozy next to dead bodies in the future. The hotel's room service is taking care of the body for them, and they've even offered them a complimentary dinner. Isn't murder a crime in this world? Xiao doesn't want to eat steak made of mutant cow meat, so she refuses the complimentary dinner offer while Shen prepares a meal for them. Shen is surprised to find that the two of them have demolished a whole pot of rice, and he doesn't even feel full. He's also scared of how much Xiao eats, as he's the one who has to feed her. He tells her that she's a glutton, and the poor girl starts crying that she will eat less the next time. However, she's furious to watch him laughing at her and threatens to kill him for the 100th time. Shen holds Xiao's hand and claims that he can afford the amount of food she eats, and calms her down. He's really proud of himself for being so quick-witted, or else she would have beaten him a lot. She decides to intimidate him even more by saying that she will not go easy on him the next time she kicks his ass. He changes the topic to their next battle plan, and she gets distracted towards the commercial bank building of Qingpu, which is located in the prosperous district. That place is haunted by dangerous species, and both the radiation level and zombie density are high there. Can't they just get the gold from a much safer place? However, Shen's definitely not listening to her talk as he's distracted by the hologram computer that she's using to tell him the plans. There's no limit to his ignorance. Maybe that's what she finds the most attractive about him. She continues to tell him that the dangerous species found there are like that monstrous meat mountain they came across recently. Running is the best option whenever a person comes across such a monster. She has two plans to deal with this situation. First is to infiltrate the underground vault directly via this route and blast it open with explosives. Or, second, is to go to the main control room and hack into the host to gain authorization. Both of these plans don't sound too impossible at this moment. Shen starts to analyze her plans and thinks that the first one isn't too feasible since blowing up a vault isn't exactly a quiet activity. Talking about the second plan, Xiao reveals that they can hire an expert hacker to help them, as it doesn't even cost that much. It turns out that they can find the perfect person in the slums of the 6th Street only, so the decision is made and Plan 2 is approved. Xiao brings up the mercenary group that considers him a good target, but he isn't too worried yet and whispers his plan of action in her ear. It looks like he has impressed her with this plan, and she tells him to go to the slum entrance the next day and choose the hacker he likes. Perhaps it's a good decision for them to operate separately, even though Xiao doesn't care about a stupid mercenary group. The next day, Shen has met up with Mr. Wang, who was bringing him all the prospective options for the computer hacker. He's introduced himself as the boss of a canned food company, which sounds like a viable business idea for him in this world. Mr. Wang brings back a list of all the hackers, and Shen is doubtful because all of them are criminals. Of course, Mr. Wang can do nothing about them being criminals, as not all of the refugees here have their freedom. Mr. Wang has assured him that the hacker he chooses will come with an electrical collar, so he can clearly give them a high-voltage shock if they intend to do him any harm. Their conversation is interrupted by a refugee kid who wants to be purchased as she knows a lot about computers, but is taken away by the guard since no one's going to take her seriously. Shen finds out that the kid will be sent to a labor camp and immediately tells him that he's ready to buy her. He clearly doesn't want her to die while doing some high-intensity labor. Shen offers 3 crystals if he gets the whole buying process done immediately, who leaves at once to do his bidding. Shen has certainly developed an air of authority, and he's enjoying it. Sometime later, Mr. Wang brings back the girl and gets all the necessary documents signed by Shen. After he leaves, Shen finally has the time to ask the girl her real name. The girl introduces herself as Yao Yao Xiao Yu, and she gets very excited about computing. She's qualified as well since she has a B grade from the virtual education system and seems to know a lot about programming and hacking. She might be a good purchase as she has potential. Shen covers her up so she doesn't catch a cold, which makes her emotional. This probably might be the first time someone has actually cared about her. Back at the hotel, Shen introduces Yao Yao to Xiao as the computing talent. Xiao doesn't want to compromise on their safety and wants to completely make sure that the girl is not suspicious at all. She's really paranoid, isn't she? Xiao moves closer to the kid and asks her if she knows Zhao Guoping and seems happy that she doesn't. The next instant, she strips off all her clothes to search her thoroughly. Shen is super uncomfortable here and goes to the balcony while Xiao figures out if the kid is actually a girl. Shen gets even more embarrassed to watch the kid changing her clothes, while Xiao tells him that he can even consider her his personal property, as he has bought her as a slave. All of these jokes are ended as he tells Yao Yao their names. He stops her from referring to him as master and is about to take off her electrical bracelet to show him his trust when she stops him. Yao Yao starts going further back, which shocks Shen. What's up with her? However, he's glad to find out that she feels blessed to be bought by him. Xiao clearly didn't expect this kid to be smart and tells him that she doesn't want her bracelet to be removed, so he isn't on guard against her. He really needs to start adapting to the new ways of this dystopian future. Moreover, Yao Yao believes that she will not be abandoned by her new master if she's meek and obedient. Shen promises her that she'll be blessed in the future and asks Xiao to take her to bathe. Shen thinks that his kindness might look a bit childish to them, but he can't help it. He has a good heart. While taking a bath, Yao Yao reveals that she was in a sleeping pod, which is why her body hasn't grown as much, and her real physical age is 16. Doing all the math, Xiao believes that her real age is 32 if she was sleeping in the pod for 20 years, which shocks Yao Yao. But her shock doesn't last long when she's pulled into the bath. Outside the bathroom, Shen hears the girls having intimate conversations about their bodies, and didn't expect them to be so familiar with each other so quickly. The girls are done with their bath, and Xiao goes straight for dinner. When the slave kid arrives there, she is stunned to see all the fresh food on the table and thinks that she's dreaming. However, her first bite makes her realize she's not dreaming, and is even more delighted to hear that they're going to share all this food with her. This is probably the happiest moment of her life. Shen is carrying Yao Yao while he follows Xiao in the middle of a gunfire. It looks like they're in the mercenaries area, who are too angry at them for finding out their plans. They can't screw up their plan, as it will end up making their boss furious, so they start chasing the trio. On the other hand, Shen is still following Xiao, who tells them to enter a block of buildings in front of them, and fast. She moves so swiftly her combat skills are commendable. This is too confusing and exciting at the same time. Xiao is too fast, despite wearing heels, and Shen is happy that things are going according to plan. It's revealed that at 8 a.m. this morning, the trio had gone to buy a holographic computer, EP, and some spare parts in exchange for the crystals. This made Yao Yao too happy that her master was buying so much equipment for her. They went on their way, but could sense that the mercenaries were following them. It looks like they wanted to get attacked by them. Was that part of the plan as well? As the mercenaries became quiet, Xiao got ready with her explosives, all set, to burn everything down. Shen is too tired after carrying Yao Yao towards the building. They prepare for a face-off, as Xiao expects their attackers to not blow them up because they just want their money. Lu Renjia is the mercenary who has been given the task to capture the money-loaded trio. They're aware that Shen and Xiao are injected with the genetic drug, which they obviously can't afford. They figured out that the trio is hiding in the abandoned building ahead and prepare to launch an attack when a mercenary goon is shot right in the face by Shen. This creates chaos in the mercenary group, and they get ready for battle, but Shen's plan is 2 steps ahead of them, while he has fun using his gun. This angers Xiao since he isn't even aiming before shooting at them. Does he have a mine of bullets so he can just waste them away? Shen has clearly played too many video games, which is why he thinks that pulling the trigger automatically makes the target's limbs blow up. However, he has understood that he has to be more careful, and they counterattack while Yao Yao is too scared to move. The mercenaries are no match for their strong firepower, and they have to wait for reinforcements, which arrive just in time. This isn't good news for the trio at all, and they move to retreat while Xiao handles the attackers. The mercenaries can't hit her, as Shen has run away. They move inside the building to search, but Xiao is prepared for them, with more of her explosives. She runs away after blowing up yet another building. It started to look like she might be obsessed with bombs. Shen and Yao Yao land in the drainage system, waiting for Xiao. He has all the confidence in her that she'll be safe. After all, she was the one who managed to imprison him in an instant. He tells Yao Yao that he had drawn up the plan to escape from the drainage system after looking at the maps of the city. He heard Xiao telling him to catch her at that moment, and the next instant, she fell into his arms. The mercenaries aren't happy with her managing to escape and continue to search for her. Their egos won't allow for them to be outsmarted by a girl. Back to the trio, Xiao is on Shen's shoulders as she's trying to install a bomb above with a remote control. He's struggling to hold her and makes the mistake of asking her weight. Doesn't he know that it's rude to ask a girl about her age and weight? She hands him the remote control, telling him to be the boss and punish those mercenaries. He doesn't have a problem with this, since there's no reason for him to sympathize with them. Just then, their attackers seem to have found something in the building. Maybe they've discovered the drainage entrance? The mercenaries have indeed found the drainage door and are struggling to open it as it seems to have been locked from the other side. They are already making plans of capturing Xiao and getting her to serve their group of brothers. One of them discovers the bombs attached there and runs straight out of the building to have dinner with his mom. However, Lu Renjia remains there, hoping that everyone remembers him after he dies, while Shen presses the remote button to send him to the afterlife as the whole building explodes. The building is turned into rubble. Shen wonders if the leader of the mercenary corps will spit blood out of anger after hearing that his entire raid team was buried. Xiao obviously thinks that he will indeed be too angry, and if they ever go back to 6th Street, he'll bring his men over to kill them. It's okay though, there are plenty of other places to buy things other than 6th Street, and it's not like they can't find another opportunity to rid themselves entirely of these mercenaries. Shen thinks that Zhao's plans sound too violent, but gets distracted while trying to make Yao Yao feel less scared and stepping up to protect her. Until Zhao asks him how many bandits he killed just now, and he tries to remember killing 1 or 2 of them at least. He must have just managed to injure 1 or 2 of the bandits, as Zhao killed most of them. But it might be only a matter of time until he becomes a qualified warrior. They decide to make use of the drainage system's solid ground and walk faster, but it looks like someone is following them. They're about to find the exit when Shen's heart starts beating too fast, and he senses something's wrong. His theory is proven true when he and Yao Yao turn around to find loud bangs of gunshots. The good news is, it's not the bandits attacking them this time, but the citizens who are dwelling in the dark underground drainage channels. They're used to living in the dark and probably see the trio as food. Zhao has gotten hurt while trying to protect Shen and Yao Yao, and she asks them to leave without her, which is impossible for Shen. He is furious and begins to kill the cannibals one by one as he wants to protect his woman. However, Zhao thinks that he'll be in danger if he carries on killing these citizens. The citizens are growling, and they look nothing less than zombies. Shen fights them with his bare hands as well, and at the end stands in the middle of their corpses. He's managed the situation while Zhao instructs Yao Yao to go to him as he's in danger. When Shen starts walking away from the corpses, someone grabs his ankle, and it turns out that these citizens are not dead just yet. Moreover, one of them grabs a knife and is about to cut Shen to pieces with it. The zombie-like citizen is on top of Shen, scraping his skin with the knife until Yao Yao shoots him with a gun and he finally falls to the ground. This time, he might just stay dead. Shen loses consciousness at this moment and wakes up in a bed the next morning. However, he can't remember anything that happened the previous day. Yao Yao also arrives there with a bucket of water for him to wash his face with, while Xiao calls him for breakfast. At the breakfast table, she starts telling him about the mercenary attack from yesterday. And even though Shen remembers escaping to the underground drainage channel, he can't recall what happened after that. Is he consciously blocking out his memories? Shen remembers the pungent smell from the corpses that were everywhere the previous day. He didn't expect the underground channels would have been that filled with fear and death. What kind of world is this? Xiao tries to snap him back to reality, telling him that those citizens were cannibals who worshipped weird beliefs and ate the flesh of their own kind. He can't possibly feel bad for them. Shen can't take it anymore and tells her that he might be going out for about a month since the food reserves aren't enough anymore. Xiao doesn't mind, as long as he promises to return quickly and they finish off their breakfast. They've proceeded to clean up their dishes while Xiao tells him about the rage mode he had entered the previous day. His anger might have been due to the genetic drugs, which perfects the surface of the DNA, but some unpredictable mutations are also possible. Rumor has it that some people have even grown 2 heads after the injection. Shen would never have got injected if he knew that this thing was so dangerous, would he? Chapter 42. Xiao tries to cover up the possibility of growing 2 heads by saying that it's an extremely small possibility, and continues to say that some people obtain relatively useful abilities as well. Pulling up her shirt a bit, she shows that her ability is resilience, which helps her to heal non-fatal wounds quickly. And it's true, since her wound from the last day is already completely gone. However, her body becomes weak after using this ability, and there's a high chance of sudden death if it's used too frequently. He checks his EP when he finds out that his ability is the killing intuition, which is a smarter name for the rage he experienced the previous day. She advises him to use it carefully and under safe conditions. It's revealed that it was a high possibility that he would have turned into a headless corpse if Yao Yao hadn't appeared to save him from the cannibals. Furthermore, Xiao can see that he's worried about it and tries to make him feel better by telling him that he can control his ability with special drugs and decide when he wants to use it. She also gives him the special drugs which he can attach into his EP, but cautions him from only relying on his ability. After a while, Shen is fully packed with his bag full of gold, leaving the girls with half a year's food in reserve and promises to be back soon. Shen hasn't left yet and notices that Xiao has cut Yao Yao's hair. She looks more stylish with this new hairdo. Xiao can't wait anymore and kisses him on the spot, expecting some romantic words in return. However, he looks too shy for some romance right now. Yao Yao is also sad that he's leaving until he instructs her to take care of her body, as he expects to see a cuter version of her when he returns. He ends their farewells by kissing her, which doesn't sit too well with Xiao. He transports back in time and lands in his bed, glad that he's out of the post-apocalyptic world. He might be about to suffer a mental breakdown after looking at all those corpses. He's also glad to be back with the same old sounds and a peaceful civilization. However, he doesn't have time to enjoy this normal world since he has business to take care of. His first task is to count all the gold he's brought back with him. He's already too excited since he has never earned more than $3,000 in a month. It feels like a dream that he's become the owner of so much gold. Shen cannot contain his excitement after finding out that he has 35.5 kilograms of gold. Even if he sells 7 kilograms, he can become a millionaire already. Damn it, he's really rich now. What will he even do with so much money? He can buy a house and a car. A luxury mansion sounds like a much better option though. But for that, he'll have to return to that world where an entire bank vault full of gold sits waiting for him. This idea doesn't seem to bring joy to him until he thinks about Xiao and Yao Yao. However, he decides to put all of his thoughts on pause and enjoy his life. He goes to cook some lunch for himself, thinking about all the ways he can spend his money. He even has the courage to return to the post-apocalyptic world. But first, he wants to relax. In order to relax, he takes out the holographic computer so he can watch movies on the technology of the future, but soon drops this idea and decides to hand it out instead. Shen walks through the streets of the city with a sense of déjà vu, which is a completely different feeling than the other messed up world. It looks like he really does need to relax before he goes completely crazy. And this time, he's just glad to see the normal creatures in his world. Finally, he arrives in front of a gold shop to sell his stock, since the banks are too official. He enters the gold shop, asking to speak to the manager, but the lady in front of him doesn't believe that he means business after looking at the clothes and his backpack. Of course, she doesn't know that the old backpack is filled with heavy gold. The manager arrives, whose eyes light up after looking at so much gold. He takes Shen to a separate room to discuss business and offers a price. Shen doesn't have an invoice, so the manager asks if it was acquired unlawfully. Shen manages to make up a story that doesn't convince him, as he's been in the business for 20 years. At first, the manager refuses to make a deal with him since he doesn't have an invoice. But Shen manages to bribe him into agreeing on the spot, and all the amount is transferred into his account instantly. We never knew that being a millionaire was this easy. Shen is going away happily, thinking that a rich man really does own the world. On the other hand, the manager wonders if he has more gold with him as he watches him go. The manager decides to observe Shen first and worry about his reserves of gold later. In the meantime, Shen decides to show off his money and gives his taxi driver extra compensation before leaving, making his day. His next order of business is shopping. He needs new and better clothes, since he needs to look more presentable to do business and chase girls. He also plans on returning to his previous workplace with his expensive clothes so he can see the expression of the lady who fired him. Shen arrives at the most premium brand stores where he used to work and chooses the most expensive clothes, while a shop assistant clerk notices him. The girl is clearly impressed with his ability to shop from such an expensive brand and goes to help him with his shopping. He buys every set of every style left in the shop and looks around for the manager, who had made things difficult for him as an employee. He wants to flaunt his wealth so bad that he finally asks the girl about the whereabouts of the manager. Shen is extremely delighted to know that the manager was also fired after he left. Definitely serves her right, doesn't it? He walks out of the changing room in his brand new clothes and tells the girl to distribute the rest of the clothes to the beggars on the street. His next stop is the salon, where he asks for the most expensive hair treatment bundle. He sits on the chair until his hairdresser, Hua Se, arrives. She is really acceptable to look at, making him lay down while she starts washing his hair, relaxing him in a way he had never imagined. Hua Se is intrigued with Shen's branded outfit and his body. All of the rich people she has come across have either a fat belly or zero personality. She truly does have heart eyes when Shen leaves after paying for the haircut. His transformation is truly amazing. He's walking alone, thinking about his old friends who have all moved on in life until he spots a female clothing store, hoping to buy something for Xiao. But he decides against going in since it's too weird to walk in there without a female companion. How great would it be if Xiao was living with him in this world, where they can lead normal lives? But he obviously isn't sure if he can bring back a live person while traveling through worlds. Lunchtime soon arrives, and he has a heavy lunch at a 5-star hotel. Today's been an expensive day for him. Shen ends his day at the seaside, where he can't even see one of the bikini ladies, and soon ends up figuring out that he has only spent $200,000 from the $1 million plus he earned this morning. Shen believed that he couldn't even afford a house in Wanghai City with $1 million. However, he soon remembers about the big vault of gold that might be worth billions. However, he can't just keep selling gold. Maybe he can sell one of those holographic computer pens he brought back. It's even possible to start a company to sell that. There are many technological possibilities that he can sell, but he has to take it one step at a time. He should enjoy getting rich quietly first, and go big at a later stage. His thoughts are soon interrupted by a bikini-clad woman who can clearly see that he's rich and handsome. However, he stops her advances since Xiao has a much better body, so he decides to go back home. The next day, Xia Xiyu is introduced as the manager of the expensive clothing brand that Shen had visited, where she has a good chance to execute her ambitions. Xia has managed the store well and has a boyfriend who dotes on her, but she doesn't seem to respond to him. She is the one who had fired Shen from his job after picking on him for petty issues like using extra toilet paper. Shen had dismissed the matter at that time as not worth it, but after the popular Shen got fired, the rest of the staff started revolting against her. Xia was soon fired from her job and became unemployed in just a year. She had figured out that everyone's attitude had changed after she'd fired Shen, and her problems were increased when her boyfriend broke up with her. But her boyfriend had borrowed a lot of money after using her identity as collateral, and all of his deceptions were exposed in front of her. How is she ever going to recover from this betrayal? How is Shen going to react after meeting Xia? Is he going back to the post-apocalyptic world sooner rather than later? How is he going to figure out how to make more money?